There you are.
Oh, where am I? There we are.
Hello.
So he kept going over longer. He had a very rough time getting his system up and running.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So the first time I actually had to cut him off. It's Sean McCormick, Waking the Dead. I've never seen his program. It's a little bit different, I guess. So
Is he
here
a
I'm a
client?
guest on these programs, and I've never, I don't even know what the
Oh, so he's not a client. It was an interview. Okay.
podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. I'm fine. It actually served me well
Okay.
being late. So,
Yeah, he and Emma, I guess, are friends. So he reached out.
oh,
I
good.
did a previous one, so it was picking up dealing with psychopaths. This,
Perfect. Yeah.
the topic.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Um,
first of all, congratulations. I'm so excited. I haven't had a chance yet to
I
go.
know. I know.
Oh,
There's
look
so
forward to it.
much. It's funny too because the day, what was it, Friday, our session and Saturday, everything was really quiet. And I thought, oh wow, maybe I'm, at the end or something. I mean, I knew I wasn't at the end, but um it's been action packed since then.
Yeah.
But not with awful memories, with enlightening and revealing memories. I'll start with the journals so we can go from there. So after our session, oh, I always forget to share. Can't you see me?
I
And I'm
do.
recording. I put that on before.
Doing tremendous work, and I'm so thrilled that you're doing the. I haven't even updated my website to July, so I haven't even been on there. So as I update it, which will be ideally then over the weekend, I'm then going to add yours right next to my videos
Oh, wow.
on
Okay.
that same tab.
Flattered.
Well, listen, I got to have good resources, and I don't know anybody doing better work than you.
Oh, well, you're going to be blown away when you see this.
Wow.
I'm blown away by it, and it's like, and I'm like not
Well,
even
that's when you
fully
know it's the
done.
Lord, right? All of a sudden you're looking at what you're producing. It's like, wow, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah, so you remember you told me to write a letter to the aborted babies.
Yes.
So after our session, I rewatched it and I went, "Oh yeah, I got to do that." So I just sat down and dictated something. I said to my little darlings, Emma, Jesse, and Natalie, I'd like to apologize to you for aborting you. I felt each and every one of you inside me. Emma, I felt your spirit leave me. And I was terribly sad. I also felt you in my belly and became a little attached to you, and that scared me. When you came along, I knew there was no hope because of the situation I was in. And Nathaniel, that's now Natalie, Alie. I felt your little spirit enter me. I knew it right away.
Oh,
Each time, but particularly the first with Emma. Isn't that interesting? I named her Emma because her dad's name, I can't remember the last name, was Edward. And at first she wanted the name Edie, but when I couldn't figure out how to spell it. And then a few days later, she goes, no, Emma, Emma. I like Emma.
okay.
And
There you
I thought
go.
it was funny because it correlates with the first baby, my first growth of the project is putting videos out there. And it's like she wanted Emma's name, Emma Catherine.
I like that.
I just clicked that just clicked right before you came on. Um, but particularly with the first Emma, I knew that I did not want to, oh, I read that. Yeah, I knew that I did not want you to bring you into this world because I knew I couldn't protect you. I had been through so much pain and horror. There was no way I was going to subject you to that. I did not know that consciously. Consciously, I was just focused on not having money or a father for you. And even then, I didn't want to raise you by myself, knowing that I was not stable enough to love you and care for you properly. I thought each one of you and I thought of each one of you, and I so wanted to be in a place where I could have you and love you, but I wasn't there. What was done to me was never, ever going to happen to you. I regret not seeing you in growing physical bodies, but it would have changed the trajectory of my life and God's plan for me. Now you will grow through me to fulfill God's plan. Thank you for that. So please forgive me, and I ask God to forgive me too. But I still do hold you in my heart. I see you and cuddle you. I love you and kiss you. I wish for you to grow inside of me instead of outside of me so that we can help other people to not go through what I did as a child and so many millions of other people. It is my desire for you to grow into powerful beings of God filled with the Spirit of Jesus to help others to heal and grow, and with God's wrath to avenge and bring justice to those who did wrong to me and to so many others. So if you are willing to help me, I would be so very grateful. I love each and every one of you, and you will be present with me always for the rest of my life. You are my children, except you live inside me instead of outside of me, which frankly I think is a better deal because this world has a whole lot of hell in it. Thank you for coming to me. Thank you for talking to me. Please accept my apology, and I ask if you could forgive me. God bless you, my little ones. I will be loving each and every one of you every single day for the rest of my life. Please help me to express you in this world.
It's beautiful.
I didn't even cry about this at all till now, and I've gone over it like 4 times.
There is something about reading it, right? That kind of out loud to
To
someone.
another person, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So that was, like I said, kind of at peace for the next couple of days. So I'm going to save that and close it. And the next entry was I was laying down to go to bed. I think this date's wrong. It might be off 1 or 2 days. I'm laying down to go to sleep, and an image of a young woman pops into my head. She has long, straight red hair about down to here, red bangs. I mean, like Lucille Ball red. She's leaning forward slightly. She spins her head around at me. Her eyes are red and are glowing. She is infuriated that I'm screwing around in her area of expertise. She says, "Don't fuck with me." Do that. So I laid back down and was drifting off again, and it popped into my mind. The images are like on like a comic book page, except they're in color. And I see the Capitol building in one of the frames. It's Washington, D.C. And that was it. I thought surely there was going to be a flood more of stuff, but there wasn't. Just went to sleep. So
Yeah.
then that was that whole day. So this is 4th of July yesterday. It's 5:30 a.m. on the 4th. I went to bed at 10 and slept very well. I was thinking last night about how to map out file clerk, which 2 days prior had the image. I should show you that too. Here she is. And when I draw it the first night, it didn't have the file cabinet. And I woke up the next morning and I put the file cabinet in. And isn't it funny? Her arms are like disappear inside of there. It says, oh wait, let me zoom it if I can figure this out. Red eyes glaring. She is furious. This is don't fuck with me. It's like, okay.
I'm sorry. So this is who?
File clerk or Fiona.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Just
she the
wait. You
one that you
can,
saw in your dream with the capital?
well, separately, yeah. Yeah. The long red hair. It's like she was leaning over into something. I couldn't see her arms or legs, but I thought she was on top of a box, but the next day I realized, because I see this line right here.
Yeah.
I drew it in this peachy color, thinking it was another body. And the next day I realized, no, that was a line to a box, and it's the file cabinet, right? Now, that night I watched Gray's last interview with Emma, the 5-hour one.
I started to listen to a part of that.
Remember I had watched the first 3 hours while
That's why I actually started. I thought, well, let me watch. I didn't get too far
I
into it.
finished it.
Oh,
And
did you?
the last hour blew my mind. And then that night, I suppose I should have journaled all that, but then that's when this image came up because as I was watching the show, things were clicking and clicking and clicking, and I laid down to go to bed, and that's when I got this and only this. So don't fuck with me. I was like, okay. I didn't say okay, but I was just like, how do I shrink that? Okay. So then, okay, that's why I called it the mind files, because Gray talks about that in the last hour. Or actually talks about through the whole thing, but he pulls it together at the end. I was thinking last night about how to map out file clerk, the mind files that Gray explained. I had an image of my mind of using a string with tape where I can put the name on the tape as I go along as there are splits. That way I'll be able to pick up the string and move it as it crosses over itself like a vine, right? So I was like, oh, I could do it actually three-dimensionally. So as I woke up with the sun this morning, I thought I'd go into the bathroom and have a cigarette so I don't bother Dixie with smoke, and also so that she doesn't think she needs to be fed. I'm sitting here on the toilet again. I finished the cigarette and put it out. As I did, I felt what I thought was the effects of the cigarette hit me. It was very odd. I could hear a tone and felt my whole body buzzing, for lack of a better word. My brain and my perception was altered, but it
Wow.
was buzzing too. There's no pain or shock, just disorientation. The first thing that went through my mind was, this is your last cigarette. Think about what this is doing. My attention was on the cigarette. I thought it was Siggy saying, okay, you're done. Then I thought about file clerk. She said, you are decoupling from Siggy. That's what she said. Ziggy, not Siggy, but Ziggy. Then I realized I'm actually interacting with file clerk. Then an image was the one that showed me what file clerk looked like, with her straight, long red hair, her red eyes, leaning over a cabinet with an arm in it. The sensation went on for probably about 60 seconds. As I got up to get my phone and sat back down, I could hear two different tones, one high-pitched and one low-pitched. At at first, I was pushing back against it, thinking, oh, yeah, you're not going to let me fuck with you, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was one of my parts.
Huh.
And then I realized I needed to treat her as the same as I did the other parts. So I asked her to look through my eyes. I had the light off. It's still like early, early morning. I told her that we are here right now at the age of 58. This is what my house looks like. She looked behind the shower curtain, both sides of it.
Yeah.
I explained to her that Chris is in the other room and can see the three ways of access into the house, and he has a gun next to him, and that I have a gun next to my bedside, and there are knives and guns all over the house, and no one is going to access us. That was when she reached down through my right hand, and she did this, John. She felt my skin on my left arm. Then I turned the light on. My eyes had to adjust. It hurt just as it did then. It took a long time for my eyes to adjust. Not normal. That's
Huh.
when I realized what Jack and Dad were doing in that room after we were given the Raggedy Ann doll. I had headphones put on and he programmed me. I had an eye covering, and this had been done 4 times. This is where File Clerk was born. That programming took the previous splits, because I think I was 6,
Yeah.
took the previous splits, and with the cooperation of my mind, and Gray will explain this, my new file clerk took all things and they were reorganized into the lily. And you'll learn what that is in a second. And because I had worked on it yesterday, I'm now deconstructing the programming. I still have that mild buzzing through my head and my body. I also just had a bowel movement. I know you don't need those details, but
No, but it's good. Yeah.
as I'm editing this, I'm having a bit of diarrhea. Because, first I go through it, poop,
Yeah.
and then I went through it again to edit it. Now it's diarrhea. I remember wondering if I was physically tortured by Dad and or Jack in that room because I couldn't remember. Now I know that it was a rape by technology on my mind. So I was raped mentally. After my eyes would adjust to the light, I would look around the room. Jack would have me get down from the chair with Raggedy Ann doll in my hand, and we would walk through the door, and Dad and I would leave. I don't know where we were, but it was not at home and it was not at training camp. I'm getting the impression that it was his house. It was by Lake Michigan and it was very nice. You could see the lake through the very large windows. I mean, like 40 foot of glass overlooking Lake Michigan. So it had to be a very expensive house. One time it was cold and windy. One time it was sunny and clear. One time it was overcast and snowy. And one time it was spring. So looking at this, I realized it was once per quarter for a year. And yes, I'm just now seeing training camp through the windows along the shore of Lake Michigan from a distance. Jack had us go there. Dad and we would leave and either go to or be coming from training camp. So I identified myself as we, and I almost changed it was when I was editing, and I thought, no, that's significant because there
Yes.
were a lot of parts going on there. It's the end of the day, 11 p.m. Fireworks still going on. This is after I texted you at I spent the day doing the whole Rumble thing. I should probably enter that. I'll just put LAUH. Okay. Surprisingly, Chris went to sleep before me. He's usually up for hours on the 4th of July, but I'm glad he's not. He had a nice, calm day. Needless to say, yes, I am still smoking. I was
Does
so
Chris get triggered by fireworks?
Yeah, he doesn't get jumpy or jittery like I do, but he has to drink. Like he didn't drink the whole day until like an hour before dark. He went and got some beer and came home and he had like, I don't know, maybe three or four, grilled us some steaks and then went out. But after I told him what you said, as you're saying it to me, I'm saying it to him because I couldn't figure out how to put it on speaker.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, uh, I told Chris that John thanked him for his service and appreciate. Chris really liked that. And he said, yeah, John knows. It was about 10 minutes after Chris broke down crying for a little while. I let him. I just touched his back very gently. He talked about different things from being in combat and how all the veterans, and then in particular, a man he works with, must be going through the same thing he is. I just listened.
Yeah.
So I was up at 5:30 and did garden chores, did some pruning, harvesting. That was nice. Very proud of all the produce I'm growing. I came in and cooled off a bit. Then I went back out and did some watering in front. Got some seedlings hardened off too and planted them at sunset. After that, so it's still 9:30 in the morning. After that, I just felt exhausted. It was about 9:30 in the morning. I laid down and went back to sleep for another couple of hours. When I got up, then Chris decided to take a nap. So while he was sleeping, I worked on my three-dimensional map because Gray had triggered
Huh?
stuff. With his explanation, I just went, the parts inside went click, 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 you know? It's funny because I couldn't really see it until I watched Emma's interview with Gray, and he was talking about the mind files. That's its thing.
I'm
In
certainly I'm gonna have to watch that all the way through.
Yeah, in the mind that is programmed by a person's handler. When he talked about that, it really clicked with me. So yesterday I worked on sorting that out. Once I sorted that out, that seemed to clear something up for me. So when I woke up this morning and then took a nap and then woke again, I was able to do the three-dimensional map. Now, so I'll show you the mind files first. Gray breaks down how they give you a symbol and they use colors and shapes. And it took me quite a while. I had like 5 different drafts before I came up on paper, before I was able to put this on here. And even once I got it on here, it changed. So for me, it's sorted out by emotions, body, mind, world, family, and spiritual. So 6 categories. And within that are the different ones. So sad, fear, anger, happiness. Body was health, food. I should put this in the reverse order, but So, because torture came first, then sickness and drugs, then food, and then I learned about health. So I'm probably going to reverse that around, but it works out because when it's next to the mind and I put down program, well, pins and stretch had torture and program at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think probably Gumby, which I'll do that as well. And maybe Armstrong Deep Throat, but I'm not sure first. So mind was programming my mind and the mind that God gave me. And then the world was I had to be a soldier, a slaver, and I had to make money.
Mhm.
And then family was my SRA parts, my family parts. So grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, Angie, Mary. And then the family that God gave me was the dogs and my different various parts that are conscious. And then the creative parts. And then the spiritual category was what blue split between God and Lucifer because God helped her fight under that blood to stay alive. And there was Michael with the righteous indignation. But afterwards, they put me on the altar and I sat there and I was like the queen of the, or not orgy, but like I was put on a little throne, for lack of a better word,
Yep.
looking at everything. And that's when the Luciferian part came in.
Yeah.
And so so it's split between God and Lucifer. And I thought, well, that Lucifer has two different splits, sex and ritual. Even though they merge in
Yep.
different ways, there's a very clearly sexual parts that
Yep.
were for sexual jobs. So I thought that was fascinating. So when I got that done,
Uh,
I was feeling good about that. That took, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours.
yeah.
Chris was napping and coming in and out, whatever. Okay, so once I sorted out, seeing something cleared up, then I woke up and took a nap. So after, so the next day, I'm waking up early, doing stuff, taking a nap, waking up again. Then my three-dimensional map clicked. I was like, oh, okay, I need to do the mind files first to be able to do it. I kept thinking that file clerk would be the very beginning with blue, but it's not. It starts later when it's actually programmed into you. Rather than start with the clerk, I just started with blue because I thought that's the first split. And I sketched it out on some butcher paper. I went right through it and it was very easy. But that's only because the day before I was able to sort out the files. The files prevent you from seeing the three-dimensional. So I thought that was really fascinating. I was able to make the three-dimensional parts map with the file clerk off to the side. I have to show you. So now I'll show you that. So this is how it started before I
Okay.
saw the mind files. I'll make that bigger. Right? I'm thinking, okay, here's the file, here's me with the
There you go.
file clerk, and these are this is like a flower with vines, and Juliet's the communication, and Trisha's the guard at the wall, and I was like, no, that doesn't look right. So then I went to, I guess here, and I thought, well, let me try some color, right? And it
There we go.
kind of helped, but not
This is great
really.
that you have the different versions, Dana, because people need
Yeah.
to be able to see that, right? It
You
takes
got
a
to
while
play
to
with
start
it.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, well, here's the flower, and I put that core would be me, and the file cabinet sits on top of me. And I'm like, but that looks like a lotus flower. I don't,
Ah,
I couldn't relate with a lotus flower. So I was like, okay, it's not that. And so then I sketched this,
ah,
right? So I was like, okay, here's me. The flower is the file clerk. I thought maybe it was just the stem. And I drew the petals and the little antenna thing. I don't know what you call those on a plant. And I thought, well, they must stem out from those 5 antenna, right? So I was going to do 5 different branches. And something about that didn't seem right, but I kept getting the vibe that these are all the parts tucked away in their individual category.
There you go.
And I was like, one, two, three, four. And so I'm like, okay, well, there's six categories. So, there, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want to fill the whole thing up. So it looks like a flower, right? But something about that wasn't feeling right. So then I thought, well, let me just draw the flower, right? And that's when more petals appeared and more stems. And I got this core. I'm like, okay, well, it's not that other shape, it's this shape. But something about this didn't seem right.
This is wonderful that
Because
the different evolution, the
yeah, because again, I kept thinking, well, each, string on that chart would be one of these antenna, is what I call them.
yep.
Okay, but I'm like, no, that's not right. So I sat down, and this is where I began the process of sorting the mind files,
There you go.
making categories and whatever. And then that moved into this, trying to put people in the right place. And then that moved into finally that next morning, I got it.
Oh, did you? Let me check this out.
Which you can't see it super well. I couldn't get the resolution because it's so big, but here's
Ah,
where it starts. Here's blue in the center, and you'll notice I had to, I folded it. I don't know why I started at the edge. I should have started in the middle, but I used the back, the extra long bottom part to extend it.
yeah, yeah,
So blue branched out into different ways,
that's right.
right? Okay. And as I get older, the vines get longer
Yep.
and start crossing over. Like, for example, where is one crosses? Like,
Now, where
okay,
the fold is that just a different color paper or is there, so it looks like,
this is double layer. It was like 6 feet long, and I folded it in half to work with it. But because I needed more space, I
gotcha. Okay,
had to
so it's not
use.
necessarily um above and below, it's just this is how it's,
No, it's just an
I
extension of the paper.
I gotcha.
So as I'm going out here through this line through Greta and the SRA and David, and then David runs into, is that Ivy is my IQ. He discovered my IQ. And he's like, ooh, I can do something with that. That's when he met Jack, my part, not my part, but the man.
Yeah.
And that's when Jack put the mind files in, right? So that branched out and became a separate thing. Let me see if, yeah, I did this so that you could see it better.
Okay.
So there's the six categories with the color. You got
Mhm.
the stem that leads to the core. That's me. And why I made that shape, I had no clue, but came to realize this morning it's a tombstone.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like a tombstone.
The tombstone. But I figured out that Trish, who's now Tanya, that goes to the center. She is the wall that prevents people from leaving their categories because you can only leave through the center,
Yep.
right? So they went from this core represents the previous SRA training. They tucked it away in a separate area so they could access it. But this is the mind files. And then Siggy relays it on the line. Let me go back to that picture. Do I have it up? Yeah. Siggy relays it back to the Jack part who can then access all the vines, all the parts, right? So these are vines. Okay. Um,
A lot
and
of work, a lot of work you've been doing.
this here is Wizzy. When I drew it, I thought it was Tasmania, but it's Wizzy. She creates a cloud of confusion around it.
You know, I was thinking that was her.
Mm-hmm.
Drew that very well.
And then There's more parts, but I'll get to that. Okay, so I'll finish reading this so you can get the context of what you're looking at. Oh yeah, so I was able to make the three-dimensional parts map with file cook off to the side. I have to show you after that. I worked on posting my video to the various channels. Of course, YouTube, Odysee were just a nightmare yet again because I tried the day before and the day before that to, say post it on this day, and I had problems. Rumble went through well, and we were very excited about that. That was done. I sat outside with Chris, got the grill ready. Then it got dark and the fireworks began. It was about 9 o'clock. And we still had not eaten. I could feel myself starting to get anxious. Dark. I haven't eaten. My parts were always starving. Plus, some of the fireworks had startled me.
Yeah.
I noticed that I had some bumps on my left knee and I was scratching at it. I also noticed my thumbs started to hurt and be very sore and tingling. Chris finally got the steak started cooking. I stayed indoors and fried up the vegetables. As I was inside alone, I was able to talk with my parts and let them know everything was okay, for them to look through my eyes and see where we are and what we are doing. I couldn't remember any trauma specific to 4th of July, but I could tell my parts were anxious. So I kept talking to them, letting them know everything was okay, that we have a right outside cooking us some steaks, and Dixie was there, so we had our protection and our comfort. Finally, we ate about 9:30. I watched my Rumble video for the second time while I was cooking. I have to admit I'm a little nervous about how Chris is going to react. I did it in a way that he could not see it or hear it. It's bedtime now, and I just wanted to record those things. I'm very happy to have that three-dimensional map done. I don't know if I could recreate it again, perhaps, but it needs color and shape. Because the parts I think are leaves, and some of the barrier parts I believe are flowers on the vines, and certain vines have certain colors. So I got to do that. The thing I found most fascinating was underneath the file part clerk, I put core and then I put my name and I put a shape around it, not really thinking about it. Afterwards, when I looked at it, I realized it was the shape of a tombstone. Unbelievable.
Huh.
I was like, oh, the things that your hand will do. So now this is huge right here this morning. At least it's huge to me. 4:30 in the morning, I'm wide awake again. Well, correction, I went to the bathroom and flipped over in bed and I had a coughing fit. I was laying there thinking about smoking. I made a prayer to Jesus to ask him if he could help me quit smoking again. About 10 or 15 minutes later, all the while, I have pain in the back of my head and jaw and temples. As I was drifting off, I had this image of the stem of the lily of the flower being pulled out of something electronic, except it was also being pulled out of the ground. Once I did that, there were a bunch of little black beetles running around all over the place. And the thought that went through my mind was, oh, those are the traffic cops for the mind file system. They run around all over the place, picking up and collecting anything and everything having to do with any and every incident, and then take it to file clerk to be put away. They
Yep.
clean up the scenes, so to speak. And this is as I'm sitting in the garden this morning.
Really, you're getting all this image.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yep.
think plant is having me look at the plants, and I'm thinking about pest control.
Yeah.
And then the mind files comes in, and so they're talking to each other, and I'm listening.
Huh.
And they're talking to me and to each other.
Wow.
So I've been up for 15 minutes. Oh, yeah, I've been up for 15 minutes indoors and successfully, peacefully resisted the urge to smoke. I came outside, did my chores, same thing. Sat down to relax, and I'm having a cigarette. I got to thinking about the cops, what they must be. I first thought audio, visual, kinesthetic, etc. Then Plant said to me, well, think about the vines and the little beetles. She calls them beetles.
Huh.
What do? They can choke out a vine and kill it. And then there can also be the beneficial bugs that can help things pollinate and grow. They can be from the ground or the air. Then butterflies popped into my head. She says the hummingbird too.
My gosh.
As I'm reading this and editing it, I just remembered when I was in my 20s and meditating once, and this was after I remembered the initial sexual abuse. I was thinking about a plant and how much I enjoyed them. As I was meditating, the plant vines started wrapping around my arms and legs and my torso from my feet up. And when it got to my neck and head, I started to get nervous, foreseeing that it would choke me out. That's when I pulled out of the meditation and stopped. I never did that again. So I must have triggered some sort of self-destruct mode, perhaps not triggered it, but accessed it back then. That could be why I didn't have memories for so long.
Okay.
I just find it fascinating that it seems that when I smoke a cigarette, I get more details.
Yeah.
The thing that is fascinating to me is that I was 4 years old, perhaps 6, and I had such an intimate knowledge of plants and how they grow, and that bugs can help plants or destroy them. I have this shadow of a memory of seeing some sort of documentary about plants in kindergarten or first grade. Oh my goodness, no, that was a video that Jack showed me while he was programming me. And that's when he instilled all the different control programs. Oh, wow. He asked me what my mind file was, and I told him it was the flower, the lily. And I believe I chose the lily because I was presented with various different options, and I selected the one that was most appealing to me. And on Gray's show, he talked about the inventor or creator part of this being called Eli Lilly, I think. I also recalled yesterday morning, after I had that memory about the tones and being programmed, that I selected a dress to wear because it was blue and white. It was little vines with leaves, John, in it, and they went like this. It could be vines with leaves, but it could also be electronic radio waves,
Ah.
blue and white of this dress. Literally looks like vines, vertical vines, also like sound waves. And I had never noticed at the bottom of the dress were lilies.
Oh.
I
Is
selected this dress that I'm wearing.
wow.
I didn't notice it until several hours later. I made note of it, but I didn't record it. And all day long yesterday, I had the thought running through my mind about that Eli Lilly. I think I'm getting the first name wrong. Oh my God, I just looked up Eli Lilly thinking it had to do with programming to discover that it's a pharmaceutical company, which I know,
Yeah.
but I blocked it out.
Yeah.
And I knew that, but my recall was not bringing it up. I just thought it was part of the SRA program and cards. But I knew that I had to have something different because I was not programmed in school like Gray was talking about. I was programmed in Jack's house. And I do remember I was given a shot. So I wonder if this programming originated and is connected to Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company. I mean, he was a CIA guy, so of course, and why not have
Was
access?
he in fact? I mean, I assumed it, but so how did you find out he was a CIA guy?
Oh, way back before. Remember, he's the American CIA guy. That's Jack Sampson, and he's a British MI6 guy.
I'm sorry. So I thought you were talking about Eli Lilly was a CIA guy.
Oh, no, 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 no,
I'm
Jack.
sorry. I'm
Yeah,
tracking.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so he was a CIA guard. So of course,
Yeah.
why not have
Yeah.
access to higher level programming or training,
Yeah.
coupled with a particular and specific drug provided by Eli Lilly?
Very
Now
good.
that's just speculation. And I'm still experiencing discomfort and pain in the back of my skull through my jaws and up into my ears, and a little bit in my temples, along with an incredible stiffness from my knees down to my feet, which now leads me to El Paso, Texas torture after I let slip about Germany. I'm thinking that they must have had access about my previous programming and perhaps even the specific drugs that were used. They used the same line of programming slash training to reinforce it after I was tortured. If I would have, because that was SRA,
Yeah.
right? Not the military or government, whatever you want to call it, if I would have allowed myself to tell Edward what was going on, my boyfriend, I would have killed myself. The programming would have insisted upon it.
Yeah.
I also just remembered in Dallas when I was pregnant the first time, and this is after I had remembered the sexual abuse, I was meditating. That's when I had the experience with the vines choking me out. I was pregnant for the second time and tapping into the first one that I did not even know about in El Paso, Texas. So my mind was desperately trying to remember and access that, and the programming did its work and shooed me away. And I
Diane,
heard
by the way, this is why I'm against
the
uh,
hypnosis.
I'm against hypnosis and EMDR and stuff because, and it's strange because Colin Ross, who really is in my estimation, sort of the trailblazer in all this, he really still uses or advocates hypnosis. But you can see then that, listen,
That
if
could be an infiltration into the real healing movement. You know what I
oh,
mean? It could be they planted people in there to use those techniques and fool
or
people.
maybe just his mindset he still thinks because okay, so the therapist, so I can see this is kind of what I'm thinking because I don't he has disclosed a ton of stuff. So what I'm thinking is this: the only person that benefits from using hypnosis is the therapist because now the therapist has the
Is
information.
there?
But you
Yeah.
know what, you try to give the client that information again,
And
it's
they're
going
not ready.
to be snatched every single time. That's
Yeah.
powerful right
Mhm.
there, right there.
Yeah, so just so did his
Wow.
work and shooed me away. And this is what my person shoot away, just like when you're out here and you have to shoo away a bee,
Yep.
right? And if that didn't work, the vines themselves would choke me out, lead me to suicide. This is so fascinating. I also find it interesting that instead of being up late at night and into the early morning, that instead I'm falling asleep and waking up at 4:30 a.m. and having these memories at sunrise. Now, it hasn't been the same time every morning, but it's either right before or right at sunrise.
Hmm.
Again, the way that a plant would wake up with the sun. And I'm actually sitting in my garden and I'm getting the strongest sense that that's why God wanted me to get this garden going. It was
Wow.
a compulsion 3 years ago. I kept wondering, why is he so focused on me getting this big,
Oh,
huge garden going? Now I get it. So I said, thank you, Jesus.
wow.
After Jack programmed me the first time, that's when he gave Dad the box of SRA cards to follow up and through with. But as I said before, I did Jack's programming 4 times, once each season. Again, how plants change with the seasons. 1 full year, 4 seasons. As Gray was talking about, a person's program is individually unique and designed just for them, and the person themselves builds it and builds the mod files according to the programming. Do you remember that question I asked you way back then? About how does the mind sort the programs? Does the person create the organization, or does the programming create the organization? So for me, it was both.
That's where I'm leaning. I really think
Yeah.
because really what's happening is a child's being traumatized all the time. Well,
Yeah.
that's what it really boils down to. So I'm harming a
Yeah.
child. If I'm a perp, I'm harming a child. So what is to happen? Well, the child is in survival mode. So in a way, the child's inner world is there to protect the child, but now the
Well,
perp can
Gray talks about that with the SRA. They use stories and ancient lore and symbols to
wow.
to set the programming in, but the
Yeah.
military uses scientific methods.
And overt pain, like the bucket with the electricity.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Um,
Huh.
and the program is individually unique and designed just for them, and the person themselves builds it, builds the mind files according to that programming. Absolutely fascinating. It's uniquely mine, or
Yeah.
perhaps not uniquely mine, but that's what I chose, the lily, a plant. So perhaps others have this similar programming, and you'll learn later why I chose that. If I could recall what the other images were that I chose from, because they presented me with, I think, I don't know, maybe 16 or 20 different images. And they were like playing cards on a screen. right, that had different symbols. And I was supposed to pick the one I was.
So you're now what you're describing, Diana, you're now remembering
Yeah.
during this training stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're in the room with Jack. My dad's outside. I get into that in just a minute. So again, the memories are coming backwards from the future to the past.
Yeah, yeah.
So perhaps, so if I could recall what the other images were that I chose from, then that might help other people dissect and
Absolutely.
deconstruct their
This is
programming.
part of your role, what the Lord's doing with you. You are a
I
trail.
think so. I just had an
I
image
can
of a
tell you.
building, like an apartment complex, like your girl.
Yep.
She had an apartment. And another one of a star, a pentagram,
Okay.
another one of a Rubik's Cube, another was a bird of prey, another was a wolf, another was a lotus flower. I
All right.
think that's why I went there first. It just dawned on me that that's what Chris identifies with, the lone wolf.
That's right.
And Gray discusses that. I think that was his. I could see how a boy would choose a wolf, and I could see how a girl would choose a flower. And I could see how someone mathematically inclined would choose a Rubik's Cube, and someone with Masonic influence would pick the pentagram,
Yeah.
and someone with an inclination towards flying would choose the bird of prey.
Yeah.
I remember in Iowa in my teenage years being distraught from time to time, looking out my window and watching the birds in the trees. I would think about how lucky they were. It was because they could fly away. I think I was accessing part of that programming selection and wishing I had chosen that. I don't
Ah.
know why, but I've always remembered that.
Huh.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much to all the parts that are sharing this with me. Jack in particular, and Siggy and Plant and Ivy and Claire as well. Trish is in charge of the traffic cops, the beetles that go around and collect all the data. Then it's handed over to Siggy through the vine, who then files it away with Phoebe, the file clerk. The traffic cops get on the vines, which is Siggy, who then notifies Phoebe, file clerk, who then sends out hummingbirds
Oh, oh, that's good. Yep, yep,
and
yep.
bees to pollinate or kill the flowers on the vines, who are the parts to either activate them or deactivate
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
And Tasmania is the bird of prey who flies around frantically on overwatch to ensure that nothing gets missed.
Yep.
And if something foreign does pop up or swoops down to devour that item or part or file that is foreign,
Yeah.
just like a military operation.
That's right.
And whatever foreign object or rogue part is captured is put behind the wall or imprisons that Trish is the guard of.
Yeah.
The beetles are the petals of the lily itself, are on the petals of the lily, who have antenna and connect with the vine, and also on top of the mound of dirt at the base of the stem where the core is buried. See, I didn't even sketch that, but they're telling me. So
Yeah.
the beetles hang out at the base of the flower and also in the flower. I think it's two different insects.
Diana, it's interesting. As you just read that, here's where my mind went. Um, you're on the charismatic end of things, right? We're going to talk about, they're going to do prayers of deliverance. They're going to do, we're going to cast, they're equating the wounded parts that feel they're mad as hell, feel satanic, right? So what are they doing? And so my guess is, from what you and others have shared, it makes sense how the perps, the CIA, have infiltrated these different churches. And so they get the message to people and they play upon people's desire for deliverance, right? Who doesn't want an instant poof experience? Look at all the work that you're having to put in this. So to offer somebody, well, all you have to do is pray this prayer.
Right,
And,
which has symbolism in it or a
right? And so they take
story.
that verse about, well, if the house is swept clean, then 7 more evil ones will come back. So
Well, I
how,
just had an aha moment. Keep going, and I'm
right?
gonna
And
look at
so
it.
I'm then through under the guise of Christianity and under the guise of spirituality, I'm handing someone the hope of immediate deliverance. So a poof experience, either take a pill or say this prayer. And if there's anything negative, we're going to equate negative intensity with demonic stuff. And so we're going to send them to the pit. We're going to put them in prison. Well,
You're gonna
guess
move to a different line of thinking.
right. And so from what you just read, look at how that plays into it,
Mhm.
reinforces the programming. So the person, him or herself, now on behalf or because of that pastor or that teaching, this false
Mhm.
teaching,
Mhm.
then doubles down on the idea that anything negative gets isolated away, and we're not going to allow that to come to the surface.
Yeah. Mhm. Well,
So
you
then
made
the
me
person's
think
got,
before when I first remembered the SRA before I ran into Emma and you, I found Derek Prince and I listened to him for probably 6 weeks, his different sermons, his deliverance ones, and I did them on myself. I cast demons out of Chris when he was drunk, you know? But it kept coming back because he kept drinking.
I've certainly heard of his name. I've never seen a picture. I didn't know he was okay.
Deliverance. He does deliverance ministry. Anyway, I looked him up on Wikipedia because of something previously. I got hooked into Michael Heiser, who is a biblical scholar who was going into all sorts of new age crap. And Melissa pulled me off of that ledge. And she said, Diana, read his wiki, read where he went to school. And so I thought, well, I should do the same thing with Derek Prince. And this is what got me. He went to King's College. Alan talked about King's College all the time, and that this is where they train people in high level stuff. So I'm thinking that yeah, what you're talking about, how these deliverance ministries are infiltrated,
Yeah,
and I think it not stems from Derek Prince, but it certainly they know what they're doing. King's College, yeah,
that's right.
and Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Why is a Christian doing
There you go. Good for you. Right?
Jewish stuff?
There's
And
no,
Eton College. Eton, Alan talked about Eton College all the time, that that's where the elite people go, blah, blah, blah. And
oh,
Derek Prince talks about how he went there. His major was in philosophy, and he was a philosophy major. And then he went into the military, and he thought, that he should read the greatest philosophy of all, which was the Bible. So when he read it with the perspective of a philosopher. And then he had this experience that he talks about, which could be BS,
there you go. There you go.
in order to draw
Why is
people in and
somebody
say,
so,
oh, I'm a Christian. But here's the thing that clued me in about him. I'll get rid of that. Was that, oh, shoot was that he did this one show and he was talking about how every morning when he has his tea and toast or whatever liquid and solid food that he eats, that he imagines that it's the blood of Christ and the
oh
body
my
of
gosh.
Christ every day. And something about that raised the hairs on the back of
Wow.
my neck.
Wow.
And
Who does that?
when he said it, he qualified it before he said it. And now you might think this is odd, and people don't, have to do this, but this is what I do. But because these people are so enamored with him and he's got the cult of personality going on, those people are probably doing that at home. But when I heard him say that, I was just like, oh shit, that was my red
Wow.
flag to get out of there.
If that's something I think you need to really raise in your program. Talk about that because I need to obviously learn more
I don't
about
know how bad that is, just
it. It's bad.
intuitively.
It's
In,
bad because no
I
Christian should be walking around doing that. Okay, where the only time it talks about it is at communion, but still, for an SRA survivor, it really needs to be qualified. But nowhere in Scripture does it talk about doing that.
and that I yeah, see, I just something felt really wrong
Yeah,
to me. And I
yeah.
was just like,
That's
okay, I'm done. I
and,
think I watched maybe a couple of more and just something in my head said, no, this is not your path.
and it's also very interesting because his line of schooling, and you nailed a really important point, which is
King's
this.
College, Eton,
And
Jerusalem.
then Jerusalem. So why is a Christian going to a Jewish? Now it's one thing to
Hmm.
study
Hmm.
Judaism or, the Old Testament or whatever, but to pay money, what degree are you going to get from that? If you're, why are you doing that? But then here's the deal: all of those are very intellectual. Yet
Yes.
yet he's a Pentecostal. That's contradictory, um, because the Pentecostal, what you're going to find with the majority of Pentecostals is they don't have formal education.
Well, here's the thing, John. He has millions of subscribers, millions.
Wow.
he's he's very engaging. He's a good speaker. He's
Yeah.
likable, the whole thing. But he could have been trained that at Eton because Alan used to talk about that at the BBC in England. They will only hire people who went to Eton.
Wow.
What
Well,
is the BBC except programming the public?
it's the equivalent of CNN here.
Yeah. And when I saw Eton, King's College,
Wow. Okay.
Alan is screaming in my head, red flag, red flag, red
Got
flag.
such a good foundation to help
So
ferret out the wiles of the devil. I mean, it really is your years of listening to Alan then
it made
was a
all the difference,
filter.
all the difference. Yeah. So, okay, I guess we'll get back to this. This is the scientific conditioning coupled with drugs to create sleepers. Now, maybe they're creating all sorts of other things, but I believe that's what I was being trained for, was to seduce men or
Yep.
be attractive that they would come to me. I would
Yep.
draw them in like a flower draws a bee, and then I would assassinate them.
Yep.
And this programming was put on my chronological timeline after I had had the satanic ritual abuse programming. And this went in and connected to those vines and rewrote its programming. At least I think so. Perhaps I need to dive into if there's an occult programming that is buried underneath this, which there probably is in that tombstone. I do remember Grandma telling me stories, and Gray discussed how stories were used to instill programming.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is the program that Angie and Mary run on, which is different from mine. Just as I reread this, I'm realizing why the core had a tombstone shape. It's because they went in and killed off and buried that programming. That's what the tombstone represents. It's dead and deactivated occult stuff. I certainly hope so. Oh my goodness, quite the revelation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, all the parts. BB is the traffic cop, because what went through my head was all the little dots that I drew on that thing. And I thought, well, they look like little BBs.
Oh,
And then BB's like, yeah, that's me.
whoa.
I kept wondering what
Can you
BB
go
was.
back? Can you show me in the drawing where it looks like BB?
Yeah, they look like little BBs. Yeah.
Okay. I got you. I got you. So the
Yeah,
little,
little, just, BB for a BB
I'm
gun.
sorry, I thought you meant they had a shape of two bees.
No,
Okay.
no, no,
Little
like
baby. Yep.
BBs for a
Yep.
BB gun.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
Tiny
Yeah.
little, I don't want to call them seeds, but like a little BB to
Yeah. That's
shoot,
right.
maybe to shoot with.
Yeah.
And I kept getting the impression that it was the satanic influence, the big black brother, which my mind equated to in relation to the traffic cop keeping everything in order.
Right.
He is saying, yes, that's exactly right. Tasmania is the bird of prey, worker bee, my first job and out in the world earning money,
That's
is
right.
the bee that runs around pollinating parts and stinging any foreign intruders to stay away. I'm just wondering right now who is the hummingbird and the butterfly. The butterfly are the sexual parts, the MK Ultra thing. And the hummingbird is the part that pollinates all the parts which would draw in influences favorable to those parts. So Corky and Wizzy are the new age parts. This is a little disjointed. So when they created the mind files, it went through the previous programming and gave the satanic programming not necessarily new purposes, but purpose that were more military in nature.
Right. There
So
we go.
BB turned into a traffic cop,
Yeah.
not the big black brother. But when I was in Germany, I went from BB with my grandparents to the traffic cop after Jack. And then in the army, when they put me in the satanic stuff, Big Black Brother came out again.
Yeah.
BB. Okay.
Uh,
I forget where. Okay. So when they create a more military nature, a nature that would fit in with my selection of the flower, the lily, the little dots on the lily. That's why worker bee went into action in my teenage years, waving off any influence that was not favorable to the programming. Worker bee recognized that that man with the picture was a foreign influence because he was from the satanic side of things, and I needed to move towards the military side of things, which I did. I joined the army shortly afterwards. I didn't see any other options. Dad must have sent him because Dad lost control of me with that whole military CIA stuff
Yeah.
and probably reached out to his parents or whatever, and they said, well, we'll send someone over there with an old picture of me, or they got a picture of me. I don't know if you've read that part.
So when you decided, because I knew you wanted to go Air Force first,
Yes,
okay, and
I
then
didn't
because,
qualify because I
yeah,
sabotaged myself.
so then how did the Army come in? Somebody approached you?
Well, you'll see.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's how the military takes occult SRA people and reprograms into their particular scientific programming.
There we
Now,
go. Yeah.
Gray talks about that in another separate interview with Emma, that they like to keep the family, which is the occult stuff, separate from like the military government stuff, and that they're actually in competition with each other.
Oh, he says that. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That the military draws people out of the occult side to use them for their own purposes. And so they work this out.
See
And
that it
had I
makes
not watched Gray, I wouldn't have put that together.
see this makes sense. Okay, now think about me as working with people. When I worked with Mary, but anyway, so what's interesting is this is then why nothing MK Ultra ever came up because hers was all SRA. But
Oh,
it's
maybe
interesting
so.
because
Maybe she was immersed in a cult only.
right but it is interesting that her biological father worked for the CIA.
Well,
But
come on, then she had to have had programming.
yeah, I'm thinking that now. But it's still interesting that all the stuff that ever came up was always SRA stuff. But that was her mother and stepfather was the SRA stuff. So maybe
Oh, maybe her real father didn't have access.
because the mother blocked dad's access. So maybe the two of them were working I don't know, but it's interesting. See, that's
Yeah,
why the
Gray talks about how they compete with each other.
see that would make sense because then I wouldn't have seen a lot of MK Ultra stuff come up in her because hers was saturated with satanic occult abuse.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes
So I
sense.
always tried to figure out why didn't I mean, nothing of MK Ultra ever really came up. See, this is making sense to me that somehow you've got this, but I'm wondering, you may even talk about it later on, like think about your grandparents and then your dad. Okay, so you've got this blending then. Your dad is a blending of the
Yeah,
occult
exactly.
and scientific.
Yeah.
So you think you
That
and
he was like a low-level player, and even Jack was kind of a low-level player, because I'll introduce you to his boss next.
okay, because I'm wondering, like, I can see how Masonic then is the perfect blend. They can use either because
Oh,
Masonic, you've got
yeah,
duality,
yeah.
intellect,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
scientific. And so I wonder if somebody at a higher level then is discerning, okay, we're going to send that person down the military
Based
or
on how they're tested, how well they test and what their aptitudes are for. Yeah. Because if they don't have a high IQ or certain aptitudes, the military is not going to want them, right? Go do your occult little foolishness. We need higher level people, you know?
would it be fair to say from what you're putting together that all of it, all these, well, I don't know. So let me ask, do you think every MK Ultra kid has experienced SRA prior to MK Ultra? May not be, yeah.
I think not necessarily.
Okay, so that makes sense.
I mean, if you're born into a military family, they're going to use the tools at their disposal.
Okay, there
I
we go.
think they're just, and those are the high level elite families of the country or world. And so they're looking for the worker bees, the assassins, the this, the that, the whatever. Well, let's pull from the middle class. Let's do a drain the middle class of their special high IQ aptitudes for certain things and leave the rest of the general public to have occult stuff, but we're going to pull out the best of the best. Maybe not in the you know what I mean, between the levels
So the MK Ultra then takes priority.
for
Uh,
them.
but you
Yeah.
hear a lot of, so you wonder what percentage of, because the one thing that is the common denominator ever since doing Emma's program, and now like you and me, we've connected. So I've got a number of folks. So I haven't found an exception where heinous ritualistic abuse is being perpetrated by Masonics, but I can see how every high level military person is a Mason.
And also an occultist.
See, and that's where I'm trying to figure out then at the Masonic level, I wonder if they're discerning how much of each do we then apply to a kid, or are the
I'm sure they've got it all worked out. Yeah. I mean, the highest scientific levels, like Alan talked about, you've got those three levels of understanding, either in medicine, in science, in aerospace, whatever, from professorship down is the lowest. And then
yeah,
you've got, professorship and the secret services and stuff. But above them, you have the elite families, and amongst those families are what they call the scientific elite, and they
right.
oversee the middle level NSA, government, MK Ultra, whatever. But I'm sure they also oversee the occult part of that
And
too.
then to be initiated each time, you're going to be sexually blackmailed, and part of that is using kids. So there's going
And
to be
if you have a scientific bent or mathematical aptitude,
Himmler,
that
right? That really is the perfect, Nazis really are the perfect blending of exactly what we're talking about. That, I guess that's the answer. Then you look at the Nazis, what they were doing, all that mechanistic stuff, the scientific stuff, but in that stupid castle was going on the most heinous of
right,
that.
yeah.
So each time along the way, somebody is selling
Things, well,
soul.
and all the research that they do and all it all funnels up to the very highest
There you
scientific
go.
level.
And
They
just
take that within their little think tanks, figure out what do we need, how do we need it. Let's create programs, filter it down through the government, NSA, think tank to think tank to think tank, all the way down to the bottom.
There you go. So it's, and the more intellectual somebody gets, the less quote unquote emotional. So you have to do
Yes,
something still
yes.
tap into emotions, or everything from loyalty to,
And they're bred. The elite families are interbred to be psychopathic. Did
okay,
you know that? They're
that
interbred?
doesn't surprise me, right? Now that
Yeah, they are. All of them
so
across
it's
the world.
then, and as they're doing their methodical left brain scientific stuff, they're layering it then with visceral, which would be right brain. That's where the raping comes in. So it's pure,
It's
animalistic, but they're selling their soul. So there's that emotional component. So it's that layering of pure intellect detached from conscience. Then
uh-huh, uh-huh.
you're
Yeah.
still
And
using.
generation after generation after generation from the pharaohs or before to whatever the Nephilim, I guess.
Yeah.
Just all those generations, that's what it just is inbred. They don't like to choose, they don't marry and breed with people outside of their group at all at the highest levels. And if you do, you're kicked out. They don't want that blood in their line.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anyway, since my legs from my knees down are very heavy and stiff, I believe that comes from the torture in El Paso, where I was taught to stomp my feet in order to reinforce shutting up. Or right now, I'm realizing it's I don't know, maybe it has something to do with trying to stomp the bugs out too, to stop the traffic cops from. No, I think it was to instill shut up. Anyway.
Okay, okay.
to reinforce shutting up. And it would be just simply walking and using my feet would reinforce it every single day. But when I got very, very, very angry, I would stomp my feet, just like a little girl who was throwing a tantrum to get their way, which would be part of the scientific
Yep.
programming to shut up.
Wow.
Everything seems to be tying together through time and parts and purposes. So I'm going to assume that all of the parts are working together now. Thank you so much, everybody. They're telling me, thank you for freeing us from our prisons and loving us and allowing us to do something else. Thank you, Jon, for all of that, they say.
Well, that's nice.
And today I will work on fixing the PowerPoint, reinserting the parts that I thought were not parts. They are, Jon. They're not evolutions, they're separate parts.
Very good.
Tasmania and Wizzy confused me. Thank you for not doing that anymore, Tasmania. It's actually Wizzy. He
Yeah.
says he likes resting.
Huh.
Um, I kept wondering who is the hummingbird. My first thought was Greta and how she taught us with stories. Then I thought it was Martha because she nurtured things. But then I realized no, the hummingbird is Dad with his follow-up programming who pollinated and strengthened each of the parts. He pollinated them along with Sarge. David is the hummingbird primary and Sarge is the hummingbird after David was no longer around. Even though even I should say David after Dad was no longer around.
Let me ask this, Diane, just a random thought, but here your dad was perping on his daughters, right? So thinking about the mind of a perp, one thing they're always thinking about, to one degree or another,
Mm-hmm.
is ensuring they don't get busted. So
Yeah.
once you start
Yeah.
perping on a kid, especially if they're going to public school. So it's one thing if you have a kid in a cabin, you homeschool, well, you're never going to get busted. So the more outside contact, it raises the degree of possibility, the chance that somebody's going to begin to question. So let me ask this. It's interesting that using the term pollinating, I could see a perp telling kids and then other
And
people,
sexually abusing them.
right? And therefore, it's not sexual abuse. We're just pollinating.
Oh, right.
Was
For
that ever, did that ring a bell right there? Because
a
now
little bit, yeah.
a
A little
kid,
bit, because I think you
if you
use the programming that
right,
Jack
if you
in there.
reframe it, well, then let's say a kid in sex ed or a
Oh
kid,
my
right?
God.
So I'm a child in public school, and if a teacher happens to ask, hey, has anybody been touching you? Has anybody had sex with you? Well, I'm not equating what's going on because what I'm equating is pollinating and the birds and the bees.
Uh-huh.
Does
But
any,
wait, I get to that.
oh, okay. Because now, right, a kid's not going to equate what's happening to me with rape. No, dad's just pollinating
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. I didn't connect that, but I do connect it with society.
Okay, okay.
Tasmania is the bird of prey on Overwatch, running around, flying around above everything, replacing or shifting to Gerald. Wizzy is the tornado that causes all the confusion.
Yeah,
The Lily works in tandem with Corky. Although Lily is primary, if the SRA needs to be activated, then Corky takes over.
yeah.
Just as I'm sitting here thinking about going out front to water, it occurred to me if all of this is a plant, then who does the watering?
Huh.
Then it suddenly dawned on me, it is the whole of society and television and radio and songs and billboards that waters everything. That's why my programming broke down for 17 years. Alan taught me about society, so I stopped watering the plant.
You're disconnected.
Now, if you give a plant too much water, it can also die. It drowns it. And I think that's how people wind up in psych wards or committing suicide,
Yeah.
laying down to take a nap and drifting off. So it's funny because as I laid down, just as I got comfortable, you texted me. I completely forgot about our session. And I was
Oh,
like, how fortuitous that Jon's client because you wouldn't have texted me otherwise.
That's right. That's right.
I was
Because
like alerted. My
I
parts were
was a
like,
little
oh
podcast.
yeah. I was
Okay.
in a fog. I was thinking I was in a fog and going, is that today? Is today Friday? Yeah, the fourth. So I had to like clear up what day I was in. So that
Huh, it worked out.
yeah. So I just saw a person with a white eye mask on with a black hood and cape. You know those like Batman masks,
Oh,
like the kind from when we were kids, the simple ones. So it was white, but he had the black hat and robe. He was licking blood from a dismembered body part and then biting into it and eating it and looking at me while he did it. I'm gonna close the door real quick.
yeah.
Chris just walked by to go to the bathroom. And then drifting down again, I just saw an image of Jack looking at me and pointing at me and nodding to continue on with his lesson. Jack has a black polo shirt and slacks and loafers. Jack has a dark military haircut, which I've sketched. Then I saw another man with silver gray hair that was short, and he had glasses, and he was looking and nodding in approval as he walked away. He approved. He must have been around late 40s, early 50s. He was tall and fit and healthy, very well manicured in a suit. Now I just saw Hispanic, again, drifting off. I
Golly.
just saw Hispanic man with short hair, and his left eye was clouded and white.
Oh,
He was looking at a control panel and turned back at me. For some reason, I want to say he's like a gang member. No, Jack said he's part of the gang to the gray-haired man. He was short and stocky. He is not well manicured and seems a little dirty and in some sort of OD green and tactical outfit. These are the people in Jack's programming room.
gosh.
Jack told Dad to wait out in the living room to fix himself a drink. That Dad could not come in because they were trade secrets and Dad didn't have clearance for that. Dad got a little annoyed with that and walked off to drink. Jack took me by the hand with my Raggedy Ann doll and walked me in the room. He introduced me to the Hispanic man and well-manicured man with the silver hair. He said, these men were going to help him teach me how to care for my doll. Then I think the doll is the precursor to the image you select because you have to select from the dolls first. Then he set me up on a chair and they put headphones on me. I fell asleep. He gave instructions to the Hispanic man for certain frequencies while the silver-haired man oversaw what Jack was doing. Jack smoked cigarettes while he worked. The silver-haired man did not like that, as I light. He looked down on Jack for that, judged him as weak. Jack had a little bit of a coughing fit, which I think is what I went through this morning. Silver-haired man glared at him. They were in the middle of a session. What the hell was he thinking? He said, this will be your last cigarette.
You remember all this.
In disjointed pieces, as I was editing it, more came.
Unbelievable.
Like, oh, wow, okay. Jack did the beginning part of the programming. When I came to the part where I selected the lily, the silver-haired man's eyebrows raised and he nodded and said, so be it. Now Masons say that, and so do occult people.
Oh,
He reached into his briefcase and took out some papers after digging for a while. He read through them. He reached into another box on the floor and pulled out a packet with a lily on it and gave it to Jack. He said, this one is special. Then Jack opened it up and followed the instructions. He gave the frequency operator directions from the packet. They showed me a nature film about the lily. When they were all done, Jack had to give the man back all the papers, and the man counted them to make sure they were all there. Then
ah,
he tucked them in an envelope, put it back in the box, and locked the box. He left with his briefcase and the box. Have you ever seen one of those briefcases that are like a box that, it opens like this,
yeah, yeah.
but you can lock it? That was what it was. the silver-haired man said to Jack, "It's very rare for someone to choose that lily." Jack was about to give me an injection, but the man stopped him and said, "No." So we're kind of going back in time before the stuff. The lily needs something different. He reached into his box and put the needle into a vial, drew out the liquid, prepared the needle, and then handed that to Jack. Jack injected me. Then the tones began. Then he put the file back in his box and locked it. He never allowed the box to be unlocked unless he was putting something in or taking out. So every time he'd lock it up and he had to go back in, he'd lock it up. When he handed Jack the envelope with instruction, he got Jack's attention and looked him dead in the eye and said, "Don't deviate one bit from this script." Jack nodded. Then he handed the frequency operator his instructions from the packet. I'm laying here and had the lyrics from the song just pop into my head. Hot, 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 hot stuff, right? I'm thinking, where did that come from? After he told Jack not to deviate from the script, he said, "This is hot stuff," right? So my parts popped that song into my head to wonder about it, and then I got more of the memory. And my parts are telling me that the silver-haired man was the man who approached me at the party in Iowa. I was like 16 when I was a teenager. He was following up on me. He wanted to make sure that my worker bee programming would waive any foreigner with outside influences towards occult practices. Once I passed that test, he chit-chatted with me for just a moment.
Now,
He
let me ask this thing. When you wrote okay, he wanted to make sure that my worker bee program would waive away
Yeah,
any.
because the B in the mind files, that's what it did. It would approach any foreign object with its stinger to say keep away, keep off. And it's funny because last night Chris just sprayed for wasps, and Chris is talking about how they kind of when he sprayed it, they kind of came after him and he had to duck and dodge.
Yeah.
And so that, triggered him for his military stuff because he's hearing fireworks too.
So let me ask you, they obviously knew what you had been subjected to early
Yeah,
on.
yes.
So what
It's
you're
my
saying is
dad.
at
Yeah.
a certain point, they didn't want the occult aspect
No.
influencing you any longer.
And from that, that's the impression I get. They wanted to make me a assassin,
Okay, now
just like a spy, I guess. I don't
the
know.
question is, and I'm just thinking, so as you're talking again, part of my mind is going how perps think. So we're talking
Yeah.
about perpetrators. So it's interesting then, while you're in the military, they did at Diesel
Occult stuff.
100% occult.
I know.
So
And
I'm wondering
but
how,
see, that's part of my file clerk. If they get the right signals or something,
so
it
then
can
they
go
pour it.
through the flower, down the stem, into the gravestone, and access those parts.
So here's what I'm thinking. And does this seem like it might fit? So we've got a kid that's been perped on, especially by the satanic stuff. That's going to split him real fast. But and then we're going to start to introduce the military stuff. We're going to do some splitting, but because the military. So let's say I want to use a kid long term. So I have a long term game plan.
Yeah.
The satanic stuff, I think, is going to be the most effective thing to split a kid. And then you layer it with the military, but then probably see the occult stuff runs the risk of the perps getting busted.
Yeah.
It's so extreme and so out there. So I could see, and so does this sound like it might be plausible? So we've got perps first, the occult, now we're doing the military stuff, that there's going to be a certain time frame where I can't allow the occultists who want to regain access because they're pedophiles anyways.
Right. So you put a
Gosh,
fail safe in there or something.
there you go. So that we don't run the risk of things getting sloppy.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay, but does that, because when it says that, right, so the
And
bees are
I'm
going
thinking, right, my parts are telling me right now that's what David does. He sorts out what's a cult and what's not. That was my dad part. He's both. He was in the SRA world as a child
yeah,
and then the later stuff at training camp.
because the SRA stuff is most effective in keeping a kid fundamentally stuck because now a kid believes they belong to Satan, Satan's come into them. And so now nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So that sense of the perps are omniscient. Now we're going to take a child who's already been shattered, already has that sense of I can't get out, because it's one thing to have an intellectual, you go in the military, you have an intellectual, you understand structure, but still that idea of omniscience, aside from satellites, big difference between satellites versus spirits.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
so once a child, I'm just trying to get a sense because it's starting to make more sense to me, just how the perps operate. So once they then can do that more mechanistic thing, then they're free to do a Wieselberg Castle thing, which is
Yeah,
pure.
to play around and shoot through
That's see
the
that
stuff. Yeah.
because
So
they're
I'm thinking right
reintroduced.
now that that gravestone,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to open that up. That would be the SRA stories and programming that my grandmother put in there.
How about this? I'll tell you what came to mind with the
Or
when,
no, because the the lily can access the parts that were created by the SRA.
there you go. There you go. And I'll tell you
So
what
what
came
the
to mind.
tombstone is, the tombstone buried those stories.
Okay, and ready? So here's what I also, when I saw the tombstone, and that's the first thing it did look like to me. So I thought, oh, we got a
It
tombstone.
took me a day and a half to see it.
Okay, so here's what came to my mind. It's like she took it to the grave.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that little what people think. So here's your name, but nobody knew then, or nobody would know when they look at your life. Just look at Diana, there she is, how much of you there was under the surface, so to speak. So it's just a name, but little would people know how much was behind the scenes, so to speak. I don't
yeah,
know, does
yeah,
that
yeah.
resonate?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, you'd have, but that's the first
I
thought that
just
went.
had a thought and then I lost it.
Okay, well, it'll be percolating.
Um,
Because how many times did they want you, right? The suicide program, make sure you take it to the grave, never talk.
oh, Gray talked about this. He talked about how part of his programming was to always not excel publicly, to not stand out, to not even be mediocre, but to keep himself in a middle of the road, don't stand out kind of thing. And when he said that, it tripped with me, and I thought, that's the way I am. I'm always behind the scenes. I'm always the backup support. I'm always, when I go to someone's house for a party or something, I'll help with the dishes at the end of the night. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't feel a need to be out there at the party telling stories and whatever.
Now, I'll tell you what just came
So
to.
I wonder if that's what that tombstone is.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
keep yourself down,
That
keep
makes
yourself
sense.
quiet, keep yourself unseen.
Yeah, that's
Excel, even though you have high IQ, this is what Gray was talking about. All these people have these high IQs, and yet they're not utilizing them for themselves.
there you go. Now, I think what you just described, I think is a really powerful piece because, for instance, like I've seen the film clip of Bill Clinton when all of a sudden he went blank. Somebody's doing something, they're adjusting something, then he comes back. So how do we make sense of then? We've got the Bill Clintons, Barack Obamas, whoever. But let's say Clinton, because I did see that picture. I also think I saw Bush all of a sudden go blank. So now think about how you just described yourself, how Gray did. So I think what we've got is this, because my premise is this. Bill Clinton is a predator perpetrator. Bush is a predator perpetrator. So, and they're out in front.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My hunch is with certain select people they've chosen, It's almost like that movie Skull and Bones, if you've seen that one,
I
where
have,
they
yeah.
feed their ego.
Yes.
And so my premise is that I believe, or I'm becoming more and more convinced that you can program someone just through their desire and their ego, like Satan said, bow the knee to Jesus and all these things.
Uh-huh.
Well, they've never been perped on, but they've been programmed. And now, therefore, they make the perfect predators, where the real ones that have been perped on and have gone through all the difficult stuff are the ones that keep themselves out of the limelight.
Yes. That Gray kind of discusses that. Yes. But when he said that, I went, oh my God. Because I found out what my IQ was like in my mid 30s. Why wouldn't I have gone to school or college or whatever and got a degree and got a better job? I didn't. I stayed in retail management, for God's sake. I don't think I went over $55,000 a year. And that
See,
was 20 years ago, but you
that's
know.
that's why I'm so persuaded we don't have to view as far as this generational stuff. So let's say George Bush Jr. We don't have to view him with sympathy, and I don't believe he was ever perped on,
Oh, I agree. Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
right?
I
So
think they get programming when they go to
there,
these
but you can
private
program
schools
somebody
and
without perping on them.
boarding schools and all
There you
that.
go.
Yeah, they get their
So
own
therein
level.
lies the difference that you can program a kid without perping in a strange without sexually perping on him. So now he becomes the predator, and he
Sure.
uses
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that, as you're saying,
Yeah,
that
I'm tracking with that. Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
Well, and this is kind of off the mark. Remember, I think I told you I watched the Kardashians as like a brain dead show, but it's not brain dead at all. I actually study it now.
Yeah.
Um, 2 episodes ago, one of the daughters and her best friend decided they were going to go buy a baby goat. Who buys a goat, right? So they go to this goat farm and there's a bunch of children. I think it was a school trip there, whatever. And it didn't dawn on me till the second time I watched it. Everybody there is in light slacks and short sleeve t-shirts. The kids are running around having a good time. But there's Chloe and her good friend. They're literally wearing black leather, full length to the ground jackets. And I thought, well, those are their black robes.
Wow.
Both of them. And they have these turtlenecks up to here with the collar up. And I'm
Oh,
like, I went, oh my God, they're
wow.
they're flaunting being a witch right in front of me. That's what I got out of that episode.
Fun.
Your family is getting in on this. You need to get out more.
Who knows what other people think, but I'm happy. Like I'm having a great old time, whatever I am doing. I just love it.
Do you think you will be in love again?
Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, I can't tap out now. I'm not even 40. One day we'll be married again. Like I love love. I will get my fairy tale. I love this. Oh yes. Some of your hands are wet. I don't know what's happening. Yes. I know one day that will happen, but I'm just not there right now. I'm not at that stage. Like I love sharing my life with me and my kids. Like I don't need anyone. Have fun, you guys. When I'm at the place that I want to date, I will. And trust me, if I like the person, I'll publicize it. Bye, you guys. Bye. Who are you? I got a crystal. Oh, nice. Little pure hearts. Love kids.
And then last night I turned on the newest one just before I was gonna go to bed because my brain was wide awake. And believe it or not, it froze in the middle. And I'm glad it did. It was like God was saying, that's enough. You don't need to see anymore
Oh,
for now. Anyway. But they went to Aspen skiing, and so there's 4 daughters and the mom and her boyfriend, and they're sitting around the table eating. And Kim says, I don't like this particular food that this chef prepared. And they go, oh, why? She goes, because it feels like human skin.
No,
Right? But when they did that, they flashed the camera to the younger daughter, and she just did this look like, if people only knew.
Remember those, you guys? This mochi? Never been a mochi girl myself. Really? It tastes like I'm eating a dead body, like chewing the skin. Thank you guys so much. It was delicious. Thank you.
I almost shit a brick, John. And it was right after that.
out of her mouth comes these words.
And one of the other daughters.
You record that episode? You need
I
to
will.
record that
I will. Yeah,
and put it on your channel. Like show, like,
I
hey,
will. And not only that, but years ago, the oldest daughter was talking about when she had her children, there's this occult practice where women eat the placenta, okay, because they feel like they're getting all these vital vitamins and nutrients. And someone brought up, now this was like 10 years ago, and someone brought up the fact, well, isn't that cannibalism? Like, oh, no. What we do is a lady comes after the delivery and collects it, and they process it, and it's turned into a powder, and it's put in these little capsules you take every day. And I'm like, it's still
of
cannibalism.
course it is. Of course it is.
But as a joke, because this was part of the show, as a joke, she had a chef come in and pretend, and I'm thinking it might have been real, had a placenta that she served
I
that
bet it was
nobody knew about. I bet it was.
Guys, how you doing?
Chilling. What's up, Scott?
What up?
How you doing, man?
How you doing?
Good to see
How's
you.
everything? What's up,
Hi.
I'm nervous.
About the placenta?
What's the word here?
Tonight is our beautiful placenta dinner, and we have brought in a chef to help us prepare this lovely meal and help dress the placenta so nobody knows what we're up to.
What animal is this placenta from, just FYI?
A human.
What?
Yes, that's the disgusting part.
Oh my God. I'm gonna put it in the oven just to make sure I kill any bacteria that's in there.
Ugh.
Am I the best sous chef you've ever had?
Rock and roll, open me up.
Placenta coming in.
Hey, how are you?
It's been a minute.
Is there gonna be one delicious meal?
What do you feel like? Placenta?
Placenta.
What's up?
What's up, bud?
What's going on? It smells really good in here. Very organic with stuff.
Hi.
So what are we having for dinner?
We're having some tasty protein. This is gonna be a divine meal. It's not that often that I cook, as you all know.
You're not cooking.
I assisted.
You turn the stove on.
Why don't we all sit down? Shower.
Okay.
Hey, Cora, I'm ready when you are if you want to pull it out.
Where should I sit?
Wherever you want. We've all waited.
Can I see it?
I am with my friend.
Good, there's so much flavor on it though.
Should we put some of this yummy sauce on top too?
Yeah. Here, guys.
Oh, Chris threw
This is the grand finale.
Oh my God, that looks amazing.
Is it a brisket?
Yep.
Cut you guys a piece?
Oh, it's nice and tender. That knife just melts right through.
Me at one point, so I can't wait for them to eat up.
Starving.
But right, flaunting it right in front again.
Right? And people talk about the Kardashians are witches, and up until my SRA, I just kind of, that might be extreme, whatever. There's overly sexualized. And, I was going with the surface level explanations of Alan. And so I've always studied it. And what drew me to it at first was because I never watched it all, never even really heard of it until Alan brought up the fact that Bruce Jenner, I don't know if you know, he's married to Kris Kardashian, the mother of these girls.
I heard that.
And Bruce Jenner transitioned into Caitlyn.
Yeah, is he still married to him, or did they get
No, they got divorced like 8 years ago. But
He's
it was the
he's a pro.
storyline in the show. And so I thought, well, are you kidding me? And Chris was really distraught because Bruce Jenner was one of his heroes and blah,
right?
blah, blah. And so I thought, well, let me watch the show from the beginning. So I went back, like, it's 20 seasons now.
Oh,
But
God.
I had Alan's training in my head, and I went back, and so I've studied this show over the years and watched Bruce and the girls and whatever. But now that I know SRA, I'm seeing all the red flags of them. So when you were talking about that, I'm thinking these elite families, they're not allowing their children to be raped. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
they are going and eating the flesh and drinking the blood, doing the ceremonies like I did on stage on those theaters in Chicago and Canada, performed these shows, did the killing. Carrie Elahi did the butchering, placed it on a table for these elite people to ingest as gourmet.
There we go.
But
There
she
we go.
literally said that on the show. She said, I don't know, it just feels like human skin. John, my jaw just dropped.
And then place that with that site, the screenshots.
That sells
I'm
the,
telling
the
you, on
stuff
your
made of
program,
human skin.
I think you
So
need
I
to
got
do
to
a video.
thinking, I bet they have that shit in their closet.
I think you need to do a video on that, show how subtle it is. And they
Mm-hmm,
put it right
mm-hmm.
out in front of our face. And here's that hat, that picture of the hat and that jacket.
I was like, how on earth, why would they if you've got a turtleneck and a long sleeve shirt on that's black anyway,
Right?
you're out in the sun, and you've got black high heels on that are this tall, and the children, oh, one of them gave Chloe a crystal. Isn't that sweet? Aren't they darlings? So they're programming, yeah, children should play with crystals.
You're going to get a goat, a young goat.
That was my first clue. I'm like,
Uh
really? Not a sheep, not a dog, not a this. She said she was getting it for her daughter, who's terrified of dogs.
huh.
But
You
you're going to get her a goat?
wonder why the daughter is terrified of dogs.
I don't know.
What
Well,
daughter is terrified?
probably it's some sort of, yes. Anyway, so I guess we'll get back to this because I don't know what kind of time you have.
Let's
We're
we'll,
just
we'll go,
about done.
let's go to quarter after because I started late, so my apologies. So
Oh, no problem. So here we're in Iowa. I'm a teenager. We're at like a kegger outside or something at some party, and this man approaches me, does some signal or something, and I just blew him off. And so he starts chit-chatting with me. He says, "You're about to graduate. What do you think you'll do?" I said, "I don't know." He told me I should think about joining the military. Then he did a hand signal.
oh,
My eyes got all screwed up because that was the last thing in my head. It was a year later that's what I decided to do. And I believe the hand signal is, imagine you're turning on and off a faucet outside, one of those outdoor old-fashioned round faucets.
yeah.
That's the hand signal.
You remember that?
Well, I do now, but it's
Yeah.
because you'll hear. My parts are telling me that the gray-haired man was also in the dentist's office while he was pulling my tooth without painkiller. He asked the dentist to leave the room and he asked me a series of questions. He nodded with approval when I answered. He touched my arm. And I think it's the same place that the file clerk touched the skin of my arm, except she was touching it to see. Well, maybe she was programming me. I don't know. But I was having her look through my eyes and she's checking the room out and freaked out. And I thought she was touching my arm to see if I was real, but maybe it was that signal. He asked the dentist to leave the room. He nodded with approval. He touched my arm. And I remember he didn't rub it, but he did, he just kind of like this.
Which is
Then
very subtle because think about if the perps are
if
working.
anybody could touch you like your
There you
mother,
go.
for
There
God's
you go.
sake.
Yep.
Yeah. He
Yep.
went and got the dentist to finish the procedure and he was gone. One time when I was rollerblading here in Palmdale after I met Chris, I had an interesting experience. There was a 3-mile stretch of sidewalk that runs past Lockheed Martin. We are right on top of the military industrial complex.
Oh gosh.
We are. Yeah. I'm less than 5 miles from it. There was a man getting into his car at the beginning of the 3-mile stretch. Then at the end of the 3-mile stretch was the same man getting out of his car. And I had to do a double take. Didn't I just see you? I got nervous because at the time I was working on Alan Watts transcripts and I knew that I was not crazy and seeing things because Alan taught me trust your intuition, listen to your intuition, right? I did a double take that person got in their vehicle and took off. They made some sort of hand motion. They had their hand bent at the wrist, pulled back, and their fingers half bent, and they turned it like you would turn on a water faucet outside.
Now, when did they do that to you? So you get the guy, see the guy
That
get,
was probably, well, it was when Chris had a heart attack. I was 50.
but I mean, where did you, so he gets in his car. Okay, I'm sorry. So at
Yeah,
the end,
see, I'm riding my bike from my house
he gets out of his car.
to Lockheed Martin, right?
Yeah.
And I have to cross an intersection, so I'm stopped. The light changes. I cross the intersection. Then I get onto that 3 mile stretch of sidewalk. There was a person getting into their car, but they were walking around and made sure that they were in my vision and did that. And I thought, well, that's weird, right? And I'm riding my bike, so it was very quick. When I get to the end of that 3 mile stretch, which might take me 20 minutes to get there, so they could drive their car around to the other side. Again, you have an intersection, except I'm not crossing it. I'm turning right to go around the back side of Lockheed Martin, which is another, I can go around Lockheed Martin for 12 miles without crossing any intersections, which is
Oh,
why I do it, right? Because it's safer. And so I'm turning the corner and he was positioned again and got out of his car and did it with the other hand. And so as I'm telling you about this right now, I think because I was working with Alan, we were trying to see if they could turn off what I was doing. Because previous to that, they had given Chris that little scare with the 4 cop cars around him, right? To see if maybe Chris could get me in line. And that's when Chris was constantly hassling me and did Alan want? But after a certain point, Chris calmed down about it. He had a heart attack. His attention was elsewhere. And I'm going full steam ahead with Alan. And so I'm wondering if they weren't just turn it off, right? Like a
now,
faucet.
when you rode your bike, was this could they have predicted when you were coming
Oh,
by?
yes. Oh, yes. They could
Like clockwork, they knew.
Yeah, I would go out as long as the wind wasn't too strong, uh, because that's the big problem here is our wind. I could go out in 80 or 90 degree temperature as long as I'm moving, the air will cool down my sweat. So yeah, I would go out at dawn when it was cool and ride. Actually, I rode outside for a couple of years, so if the season was cool enough, I'd go later in the day. But yeah.
So
um,
typically this is before work
This is
hours.
No, that was my workout. That I would go on a
No,
10.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hours of work. Was this, so you're seeing this guy, what time in the morning was this?
It was I think after maybe 10ish.
Oh, 10. Okay. So this guy is
10 in the
not,
morning.
he's not in work where he should have been at Lockheed Martin.
No, it was just like some pedestrian random person. I thought maybe, oh, I'm just realizing they had at the beginning they had the hood up on their car. And I think that's why he was getting out walking around pretending he was having car trouble. But when I got to the other side, it was simply him getting out of the driver's side because I was turning right. He could
He was
park.
watching for you. He was watching for you.
Yes, he followed me and went to the other end. And I was just like, that's when the red flag went up. Oh shit. I think someone's watching me. And I connected it with Alan Watts' work, not with this. And I thought, well, screw you. I'm going to do it anyway. And I did. Fuck you. Screw you. And, I'm riding around the military industrial complex. there was another time I used to, at the end of the Lockheed Martin, they have this big chain link fence. It's like, I don't know, 8 feet high. And then there's desert, a huge piece of desert. And one time I was really hungry and I thought, well, I'm going to pull over right here. I'm going to lean against the fence because I would have a place to rest without sitting up. And I'll have my little snack right here and have a cigarette and whatever. And sure enough, within a minute and a half, security was there saying, "Oh, ma'am, you're on power. It was the Lockheed Martin people." And I said, "Oh, I thought because I was on this side of the fence and it's desert that this was public." "Oh no, ma'am, boy." He shooed me the hell out of there. I think he thought I was spying or something. I'm like, "No, I'm just taking a rest here because I wanted to lean against the fence. There's nowhere to lean out there in the desert. So
Okay.
I think that was a random thing because I triggered probably some security on the fence. But yeah, anyway, so that's the dentist, and then oh yeah, so the man did double take. Very creepy. This was before, yeah, see, before I thought I was rollerblading, but I was actually riding my bike. Because I've also rollerbladed that strip of land, but that was before I met Chris and the memory got all tangled up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I was thinking about Jack's office. Each man represented 3 different levels of society. You had the guy in the tactical outfit operating the machinery. Then you had Jack as the manager instilling the program. And then you had the higher level scientists just standing there observing and providing the data. And so that's why I wrote this down. So, yeah, fascinating, isn't it?
I'm telling you, right? And so isn't it interesting that the government schools, the grad schools are pumping out into society therapists that are not only ignorant of 100% of this, jaded by degree, are jaded against this, and have been subtly told really that all the primary indicators of this stuff we're never going to conclude. Not only we're just ignorant of it. And that's where
That's intentional. That's
100%.
intentional.
That's why I'm so
Yeah.
agitated. Well, I'm now 61, going to be 62. Okay, and I graduated, when I was 25.
So for what, 35 years? Yeah.
And so we have, at best, we have well-meaning therapists that haven't got clue one. So when I do my final, so I am going to do it with Emma, and that'll be another series within a series that I'll just walk people through my endless whiteboard, and I'm going to be talking to mental health people in the general
Oh, I'm glad
public.
you brought that up. What is that software called? Because I think that's where I'm going to
Yeah,
put my 3D
it's
thing.
actually just an app. So the app is called Freeform.
Freeform. I kept thinking it was
All
free
together.
flow.
Form. I think I just looked up just some options, endless whiteboard. So it's a really good.
I think that's what I'm going to put my 3-dimensional piece
I
on,
think
so I can make it an actual plant.
then you can
And the vines and the leaves and the flowers and the only thing my sketch didn't have on it was like the beetles, the butterfly, the bird of prey, the bee. But it's just seeing that first part and then sitting down and talking about it the next morning, all of that. And I'm staring at my garden going, oh, you got to have a pollinator, you got to have this, who waters it? And that's what I thought was most fascinating, is that it's society, it's the programs they put into society that keep all of this fed. And that's why I thought about the Kardashians, right? And their little satanic innuendos and cannibalism. Oh, it tastes like human skin, or feels like human skin, or
nobody raises.
billboards, or the lyrics in the music, or this, all of it. It's intentional because all those things come from the higher level schools like Eton and whatever. They control the BBC, they control CNN, they control the political debates. I don't know if you saw the debate, but They
I,
had
I,
they had this, Chris watched it, so I did. I study it. I'm like, what are they not saying? Right? So one of them brings up the fact that, oh, well, Trump, but the border and all the people coming across the border. Oh, well, Trump put all the children into cages, but Biden is allowing them to be trafficked. And then they just breezed by that. No debate on what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Why are you allowing this? You know what I mean? It was just, oh, well, it's just common knowledge now. We don't know where those 86,000 people or children went last month. No one brought up numbers, nothing. I was furious. I was like, so they're part of the game.
yeah.
Yeah, they're puppets, political puppets that, I would put them in the class with or the level with the mid-level with like the CIA, then I say the politics, the think tanks, all that. But it's the elite in the scientific arenas, academic arenas, like the 1 out of 80 professors gets to move up. Well, I'm sure out of the people in the second level, 1 out of 80 people gets to a higher level, if at all. I think that highest level are the inbred satanic families. And they say, oh, well, you're inbred for your scientific abilities, and you're inbred for your fashion, and you're inbred for your whatever. Kim Kardashian is still the brand ambassador for, oh, what is the name of that fashioners? The one that had the backpack with the teddy bear and the
The
sexual
Balenciaga thing?
Balenciaga. She's the brand ambassador to this day, even though we went through the controversy. Oh, they're just wonderful, Balenciaga.
Wow.
Right? So she's normalized that.
Yes, she is.
I don't know if you've seen Celine Dion has a clothing line for children. Do you know what's on it? Skulls, bones. Look up Celine Dion's children's line,
Boy,
clothing.
didn't she go downhill quickly.
Well, and she had,
After adrenochrome may have become hard to come by.
well, I was under the impression that she got the COVID shot. So I think they're clearing out house with their actors and actresses and politicians with those shots.
Well, you look at how quickly, how youthful they've all looked, but I've heard
Mhm.
that some
Yeah.
good forces have been going after the adrenochrome, which would then
Mhm.
make sense how all these um, youthful looking actors and actresses that have been youthful for years all of a sudden have gone downhill real fast because their little fountain of youth substance is suddenly not accessible as it once was.
Yeah, I want to share this with you.
This whole thing's
It's
unbelievable.
disgusting. Um, Children's clothing line. Look at
What is
this.
this?
This is Celine Dion's clothing line for children. It's
But that
black.
goat's head was part of it?
I'm not sure.
Or you had,
Oh,
okay,
I know. I moved off it. I shouldn't have.
that's okay. But I saw that goat,
Oh, there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It says Celine Dion starts weird demonic clothing line for kids. And this is the image. Yeah, and it's black and white, so masonry,
yeah.
right? Here, look at this.
Oh my gosh.
Dolls. And there's so much more. And what does this say?
Oh gosh, look at that thing. Was she in the midst of all these?
You should see the
What is this?
commercial. Look at this.
And instead of a red cross, we got,
A
red cross.
black one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because the commercial moves from blue and pink for children to gray and white because we don't identify gender anymore.
And you
It's
wonder
genderless clothing.
on that outfit, you wonder if it spells anything. Look
Yeah,
at this.
what is this?
This.
Yeah, I mean, would you ever look at, and the star
There's
is
the
pointed
pentagram.
down,
There's the
pointed
pentagram.
down.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's just disgusting. Yeah, she is. I mean, PU, the hell is that? Yeah, there's a commercial somewhere I saw on someone's website that alerted me to this. I was like, are you kidding me? Skulls and bones, it's all black and white with these letters, which I'm sure spell something backwards or forwards or whatever. Oh, here. You see these?
Oh, there we go. Look at the pizza.
Well, I
Oh,
don't think
oh,
this
I
is
thought that was a,
hers.
sure
Yeah,
looks like a piece of pizza.
it
Look,
does. That's what
that's
my
not a
first
Christmas
thought
tree.
was.
Look at that over on the right. Look at that green sweater.
This one, yeah, I thought it
That
was
is,
pizza as well.
well,
Yeah,
you know it, right? I don't care if they make it look like a Christmas tree. That's a piece of pizza.
but yeah, this is her clothing line. I
That's
wonder if
Dion's clothing line.
no, I don't. It just says ugly Christmas to it.
Okay, okay.
Letters, but this is Celine Dion's clothing line for children. Yeah, I wonder if
All
there's.
it does is it marks which parents are ignorant, and so those kids are easy target.
Oh, here it's 1 minute if you have it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, they know that any parent that's going to purchase this stuff for a kid is ignorant of it, so they can start accessing the kid.
Yeah, here's the commercial, right? Oh, there's no sound.
That's okay. So they show her getting arrested, but she's smiling, huh?
Oh, our children. Here, I'll go back there.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm Celine Dion.
Our children, they are not really our children, as
Oh,
we're all just links in a
With the
never-ending
big
chain
black
that's
outfit.
living. For us, they are everything. But in reality, we are only a fraction of their universe.
oh my.
Look at that. They turn into ghoul.
I can't believe they called security. I'm not spending the night in jail. Holy shit.
Easy. Celine Dion. Yeah, girl, and I'm Beyonce. I'm calling my agent.
Yeah, and the clothing line is called Nunu, Nunu.
I mean, what kind of commercial is that? What do you take away from that, anyways?
I know.
She's in a baby ward.
Turning them from normal pink and blue children. Well, you know what I mean. But let me blow my black magic dust on you. And just for a split second, you see ghouls in those baby cribs.
Oh, see, I didn't even see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, shoot. I closed it
Gosh,
up.
talk about subliminal. I didn't even see it. Oh, dang, this stuff is so heinous.
And the upper levels are allowing, they're pushing this clothing
Gosh.
line.
And it's just,
Here,
you
there
know,
was a picture of it because it went so fast, but that's how I noticed it. Images. At that part where here, look. See, she blows her fairy dust and they turn black and white. You have little ghouls popping up,
oh boy.
right? And
I
then
didn't.
then they do the quick shot over into this, or no, there's the ghouls. But then the quick shot over into just them wearing gray and white clothing.
Yeah.
Her clothing line. But
It's just-
yeah, I guess this was part of some sort of commercial for new world. New world. Look at that. NU. It's like what? That's what she called it. NU. Gender neutral clothing. I
okay,
would call it satanic clothing.
there we go.
It's just insanity. But I'll let you go. I know you got people.
Thank you for the education on all this.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh, listen, you've been good work, Diana. And
Thanks. Yeah.
And as you say, right, you're just laying down to go to sleep and the parts are
They
giving you-
do. And I realized it's part of what Gray was talking about as well. He doesn't clarify it really well, but I was kind of tracking with him, is that you need to learn how you, when you get into that delta state, to pull yourself out of it. He
Mhm.
said too many people, they get to that delta state and they'll fall asleep. You know, he said a lot of people will set alarm clocks and whatever to pull themselves out of that delta state. And I thought, well, what is he really referring to? And then clicked this morning. That's what he's talking about. I'm dropping down into sleep. I see an image, but rather than let myself drop down into it and fall asleep and forget about it, my parts are screaming at me, get up and record it. They literally are, get up. And so I get up. I don't get up because of an adrenaline surge. I get up because it's so important to put that detail on paper. And I think that's what Gray was referring to. You've got to learn how to come in and out of that state without falling asleep. And I didn't click because I thought he was talking
I'm
about.
glad you're recording this one because that'll be a separate program.
Yeah, I thought he was talking about just normal daytime. I think he mentioned meditation or something like that. But I'm like, well, no, for me, it's when I'm about to fall asleep, you know, or I'm in my waking state and I feel myself get sleepy. And then when I get sleepy, then bam, something comes up. So I think you have to reach that, what he calls a delta state, to access it and your conscious mind remember it. But that's never going to happen if your parts don't trust you.
There you go. Okay, well, the Lord's obviously going to use you in very strategic ways. It's like, talk about coming out of or figuring out about the matrix. It's,
I
again,
was just
doing
blown
this,
away.
but even watching that video, us working together, me learning more about the MK Ultra stuff, especially the military, it really is like, how deep does this, it's like, okay, what I thought was,
It's the world. We are in a web.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's what
I had
Alan shows you.
and it's like, oh my gosh. So
And you truly get an understanding of the spiritual warfare, because that's really all it is.
yeah,
That's all it is. And it's Satan's way of infiltrating down into every last drop and cell on the planet. He wants to infiltrate every atom and proton, electron, and that's how he's doing it, through people. Because, if I hadn't woke up, I could be out there killing people all over the place. And who knows? Thank God for Chris and thank God for you. So thank God for God. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine someone who's not saved getting out of this mentally.
you can't. It takes God.
Because
Wait.
it's like, what are the chances of me being at the exact state I'm in, trying to figure out my three-dimensional map, and then watching a guy who I think is full of shit, realizing he's not full of shit because this other guy I trust, Alan, talked about the same things. And so now he's talking about mind files, and that's the exact place in my process that I needed to go to get to the next step. It's like only God can weave that together like that. You know what I mean? So how would a non-Christian get there? I don't know. I mean, unless God wants them and will save them later on, but I don't know. That's the part that scares me, is that they need to embrace Christianity, or maybe not Christianity per se, but at least acknowledge a good, loving, creative, protective creator. You know what I mean? That isn't Buddha, that isn't this or that or this, that their own unique connection with God, that is the real God, without saying the word Jesus or Christian. You know what I mean? Because I think there's people all over the world that are good people, right? And do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, carry their own knapsacks, but they're not Christian. I don't know. I just think you've got to be saved to get there because the ultimate,
Ultimately, I agree. I
oh
mean, that's
shit, the ultimate enemy is Lucifer.
yeah. And the only way we're going to combat that is number one, have our sins forgiven, so that now we've been taken out of the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, and then only he ultimately is going to be able to help someone.
Yeah, see, I guess I think I got that from Melissa because she hesitates bringing up Christianity and
I noticed
Jesus.
that. Noticed that.
And
And
because Alan did, and Alan was like, well, he feels that the Christianity, the original Christianity when Christ taught, has been polluted and screwed up, which I agree. But there are people like you that see through it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, she's got issues with it.
yeah, ultimately, you know what? At the end of the day, when we finally
I
stand
won't
up,
say issues, but she just has this particular I'm not an Orthodox Christian. I'm Christian, I'm saved, I'm baptized, I believe in Jesus, but I live the way, the truth, and the life.
right.
And I don't have to go to church, which I agree with. Yeah.
But ultimately, if we don't lead people to the true living water, what have we done?
I know.
We've
Yeah,
set
that's what I'm
them.
thinking. You got to get there at some point.
All we've done is, in a way, offered an alternative that isn't an alternative. So, and that's in a way worse because that means we're helping a survivor,
Become a yoga instructor. Or let me teach you hypnosis to get out of this, and I'm going to send you to Zeta Reticuli and touch a healing stone, and it'll all be better.
there we go.
That's the alternative.
And so we've led them to a dead end that's doesn't still offer. I mean, ultimately, only the Lord is going to help heal the heart.
I agree, totally.
Yeah.
So I'm glad in my first video, which I think you've seen before, as I talk about the baptism and all that, because it was a major factor all the way through my life, and I didn't even know it. So
Well,
anyhow,
called you, right? And I still believe and will be praying about, and let me pray here just now.
yeah.
But I really think that, and I'll keep praying along with you. We'll pray in a second, but I could see such a dynamic duo, you and Chris. If Chris,
It gets there.
the fact that he started to cry, he's getting in touch with his emotions. That's the
Well,
first step.
he'll do that, a few times a year.
That's right. That's the first step. The Lord has to
What I
soften
wanted to say was, let's go beat on Ted, but I knew he wasn't in a space to hear it, so I just left him alone.
little by little,
Yeah.
right? Because what a powerful thing. But we won't. We'll trust that the Lord's going to keep working.
I just hope that, if I speed through this and we stop after a year and Chris sees, he'll go, maybe I should work with John because now Diana's not paying him. We'll just continue, but I'll take her spot. That's my hope.
We'll find out, huh?
And I can work with them and show them how to break it apart and all that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Dissect it. So,
And be looking for a whiteboard, endless whiteboard that maybe allows you to do three-dimensional. So wouldn't that be cool? So maybe not just this, but where you
with my stuff. Oh,
and yeah, I would really then recommend that because the whiteboard that we have right here is just the one-dimensional thing.
still, yeah, it's still
It's
two-dimensional.
looking top down, but then there's got to be a whiteboard where you can then actually do three-dimensional.
I looked into some of those softwares for realtors and they're massively expensive, like thousands of dollars. Yeah. And the ones that are affordable, it's not like you can create a box, and another box next to it and get this outside view, but you can't walk in it and walk through it. It's just this superficial. And I was like, I don't want that either. So maybe down the line, maybe it'll come available and we can do that. But it's a great idea. Yeah.
But then still connecting the dots as far as maybe there is that whiteboard.
And maybe I can just talk to AI, which I haven't really interacted with AI and say, I create a three-dimensional lily, now have vines moving out from it and whatever, and maybe it could do it. It couldn't do it with the sphere thing that I wanted, but maybe it could do it with this. So who knows? It'll probably say lilies don't have vines.
Yeah, yeah.
It won't mind us.
Well,
All
Lord will
right.
lead you to the right one.
Yeah.
Okay, Lord, thank you again. First of all, thank you that you are our God and that you've reached out and saved both of us. And thank you for that. We know that's by grace. It's not by our efforts, not by our worthiness. So thank you for that. And Lord, thank you that Diana and I can work together for allowing our paths to cross. And Lord, continue the amazing good work that you're doing in Diana. Lord, continue to give her the insight. Thank you that the different parts now are really starting to work together. Lord, continue to give them the sense that there's a future and a hope. And the more they're able to share with Diana, the more this really is one of a kind, that it's going to help lead so many survivors out of their prisons into the light so that the healing that they need can take place. So thank you, and be with her during this work. Let's give her insight and wisdom into how to put all this together. Lord, thank you that though the evil ones, everything from her dad and her grandmother to all these different vile individuals that she's come across in the military, or that they meant it for evil, you're going to turn this around and mean it for good. And I pray that, Lord, that we see justice with different perpetrators that have been involved. We'll trust that you're going to allow us to see some of them brought to justice. So we'll continue to hold on to that hope. Lord, thank you for the knowledge that our pain has mattered and that not 1 ounce of our pain fell on deaf ears or on dry ground, but that you will uphold that. So thank you for the knowledge that our pain, our tears have mattered, and that you are the avenger of blood. So thank you for that. And we'll continue to trust, Lord, that as we work together, Diana and I, that you will be very present in our sessions so that truth can emerge. Lord, thank you again for the work that you're doing in each of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right.
And then, over the week on Sunday, then to be able to get your stuff on my site. When I get it done, I'll then let you know.
Okay.
Then,
Yikes. Anyway.
are you okay if just as far as me reference? Well, it's going to be on my site, so I will start letting people know about you. I won't let them know the connection. I'll just say,
Yeah, that's fine. I did rethink airing our sessions, and I think I will not, just simply for Chris's privacy.
I
Really.
totally understand.
Yeah, because
there's
that would really freak him out. Yeah.
I'm just going to start having a collection of people that I feel really good about directing people their way. So I'm
Okay,
going to
good. All
suggest
right.
people access your
I'm
channel.
flattered. Really flattered.
Doing good work.
Thanks.
So, okay, well, we'll plan on next week.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Likewise, and tell Chris hi for me.
I will do. Okay.
There you go.
All
Okay.
right. Bye.
Bye.